Here, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Craig. I appreciate that. A couple other thank yous. I first want to thank Amy Gillespie for inviting Sue and me to be here tonight. It's been a pleasure getting to know Amy over the past year or so, and I'll talk just a little bit more about that in a moment. Thanks to Stacy and the group for dinner. We appreciate that. Want to say thanks to our son, Matt, who's the one who put together this PowerPoint. Sue and I don't have the capability of doing that, but our son did, and I want to thank him for that. And thanks also to my wife, Sue. I'll be doing most of the speaking. Sue is getting over a case of pneumonia. She's well on her way to recovery. She's not contagious. There's no COVID-19 or anything like that. So she's doing well, and she'll operate the slides for me. Thanks, Susie. We worked with Amy last year in August for about 3 weeks over in northern France. We were searching the crash site of the B-17 bomber from World War II. Also on that dig were Michelle Coons from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science and Aaron Baxter, also from the museum. In addition, Ray Sumner, what I think some of you know from Fort Collins and Colorado State University, he played a key role in that project as well. In all, there were 14 of us who were working on that project. 11 were either archaeologists or archaeology students. 3 of us were metal detectorists. And it gave us a great opportunity to observe the way one another goes about doing their work. And when we finished up with that, Sue and Amy and I were talking about possibly doing a presentation like this to the Denver chapter's CAS. And it's culminated in our being here with you tonight. Before going further, I do want to say that this is not a sales pitch for metal detecting whatsoever. All I'm doing and all that Sue is doing is putting this idea out here to you. Maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't. It all depends on, number one, whether your project involves the search for metal artifacts. If it doesn't, then certainly you wouldn't use it. But if metal artifacts are at play, you might consider using metal detectorists. Like Craig was saying, Sue and I have been doing this for 10 years. There are detectorists who've been doing it a whole lot longer than we have. We are members of Eureka Treasure Hunters Club, which is the big metal detecting and treasure hunting club here in Colorado. It goes back to 1973. It's a 501c3 corporation. The slogan of the club is "Search with Care," and we really do try to do things right when we're out there metal detecting. There's a website for the club. If you want more information, feel free to go to it. Eureka Treasure Hunters Club. Sue's on the board, as Craig mentioned, and I'm the team leader of the Historical Artifact Recovery Team, which I'll speak about a little more here in just a moment. So with this presentation, I think it'll probably take like 20 or 25 minutes, if that's okay. I'll try to keep up a pretty good pace. And I'm going to try to stick pretty close to what the slides provide. I'm not sure what the format is, but we'll leave plenty of time if Q&A is desired at the end. First, I want to begin with this quote from Ray Sumner up at CSU. And this was made after we at the HART team had worked with Ray out at the Julesburg project, about which I'll speak more in a little bit too. But let me read this to you real quickly. The Historical Artifact Recovery Team members' work was a critical aspect of this project. We recovered over 2,500 artifacts, many of which were diagnostic, and started to develop a clear understanding of the areas of occupation at the site. The partnership with HART truly demonstrated the potential and impact when archaeologists partner with informed and trained metal detectorists like the HART members. We would not have recovered even 5% of the artifacts without the expertise and labor provided by HART. It is a model that more archaeologists should follow to multiply the impact of our research. I hope to work with HART again. Again, that's from Ray Sumner. It was in Sound Off newsletter. Ray, I believe, is the publications committee chair for CAS. Next slide. I've got a couple of shorter quotes too. Bear with me a moment while I run through them. First one's from American Battlefield Trust. The utility of handheld metal detectors, once considered the domain of amateur relic hunters out for personal treasures or looters in search of profit, is undergoing a rehabilitation in the eyes of professional archaeologists. And the next quote that we've got there on the screen, the collaboration between archaeologists and metal detectorists is a positive development that will surely benefit historical research. And I would point out that in England, there's even an online magazine titled Archaeology, the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine. So I think it is becoming more common that archaeologists do think about working with metal detectors if the project so dictates. The next slide, please, Sue. Tools of the metal detecting trade, and I'll just run through this real quickly with you. Of course, we use a metal detector. That's the big object shown in the middle of the picture there. It puts out a magnetic field, and it gives both an audio and a visual indicator of what might be in the ground. We use a pinpointer. That's this object. It's handheld, it's battery operated. It helps you hone in on the specific metal item that the bigger detector has located in a more general way. We use headphones to help discern the sounds of what's being detected. And after you've done this for a while, you begin to be able to tell what type of metal is down there in the ground. We use digging implements, of course. I've got a shovel there, and then a handheld.
Excuse me?
Bigger handheld one is commonly used by detectors. It's
Can I interrupt?
Bigger LESCHE digger.
Can I interrupt the presentation really fast?
And Sue and I thought we'd just real quickly, in a real rough estimate way, give you an idea of what the costs of these items are. You can get a pretty good metal detector for maybe $600–700, and it can go all the way up from there. You could easily spend a couple $1,000s on a detector. All of them have the same basic functions, though some do it a little differently and some do it a little more a little better than other detectors. This is a Garrett product here. It's American made. If you had any interest in metal detecting, it's a good one to start with. Pinpointers, the handheld item that I mentioned to you, those go for about $140, somewhere in that range. And then the headphones that you need, they're around $100 to $150. And again, that's just a rough estimate to give you an idea of what the cost is. Next slide.
Can you just one sec? Just one sec. We're trying to bring up the video. Huh? Better? No?
No, it's still something like wide view. Did you hit share screen?
No.
Okay, let's try sharing that screen
From
the computer. Just go to Zoom. Yeah, and then share screen.
Now, this isn't cutting into my time.
No. You're good.
You're
Well, I was an attorney, so.
That seems to have fixed it.
Yeah, you want to
full size it?
Technology.
I don't know how to drop her. Sorry, I'm trying to set it to full size.
Click me down. Go back over. Go back over.
Right here?
No, in the body. Okay, go over to where the participants are. Okay, now all the way to the top and left. Yeah.
That guy? That one?
One more.
So people can also do that on their own screens.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Could we put it on the capabilities of metal detecting slide?
I can't see the screen.
There's a,
We need to go back.
try now.
Yeah, go ahead. Computer, that's
There we go. That's the right one. Thanks. Thanks, everybody. I have no idea what you did. It seems to have worked. Capabilities of metal detecting. A metal detector can locate all types of metal. Iron, aluminum, copper, zinc, gold, silver, every type of metal, whether it's ferrous or non-ferrous. And it can go down to a depth of approximately 1 foot. And I should really have said when I made the slide, it's just at least 1 foot. I think, very comfortably, we can go down at least 1 foot. And that may not seem like it's very deep, but as a matter of fact, Civil War artifacts that are still being found, and lots of them, are not more than a foot deep, going back to the 1860s when the war was fought. The artifacts that are found in Europe now, ancient artifacts that are metal, they're no more than a little bit over a foot deep in the ground. So while it seems like that might not be very deep, it actually is enough to get you where you want to go. And I would mention that bigger items, the bigger the item is, the deeper you can go with your detector in finding it. A metal detector will find even small items, even tiny items. You'd be amazed at what we can turn up with these machines of ours. Another thing about metal detecting is that you can cover a large area relatively quickly. When we were working with the archaeologists over there in France, their discipline leads them to a certain location and really intense examination of that location. With metal detecting, you can roam a lot more freely and cover a lot more ground quickly. Usually we use a grid process, so we're not going back over the same area that we've detected previously. A metal detecting machine cannot, of course, locate items like bone or gems or stone or glass. So we had me add this last part here about, but a detectorist might. By that we mean, we're covering the ground, we're looking at the ground, we're going to see whatever is down there. And on the B-17 bomber crash site, we found a lot of plexiglass, which was indicative of the airplane. That's not metal, but we certainly found it. We find bottles and glass pretty frequently, old bottles and glass. And we'll sometimes find arrowheads or arrow points. Next slide. I want to talk to you a bit about the Historical Artifact Recovery Team, HART. Again, it's part of Eureka Treasure Hunters Club. It's a community service that certain members of Eureka provide. We want to give something back to the community. We're interested in historical projects. And those of us who have that sort of mindset lean toward participating in HART. It's a voluntary service. That is, we do it free of charge. We will work with institutions like museums or universities, historical societies. We've worked quite a bit with real estate developers. We are not renegades by any means. We follow the instructions of the party for whom we're working, and we establish parameters for the project right at the beginning. And if they need to be amended as we go along, we do that. And by that, I mean, we try to determine how many people are needed for the project. We try to determine how big the area is that we want to cover. And we agree upon a method for marking the artifacts that we locate. We at HART and with the HART team, we do not keep artifacts. We turn them over to the institution that we're working for. We do no damage to the property. And by that, I mean, we're digging in the ground in order to locate these metal artifacts, of course. But we fill in our holes and we make it as natural as we possibly can after we leave. So we don't leave damage to the property. And then our goal with HART is to assist with historical research and preservation. We've got a couple of pictures from the field here. This is Sue and me with a couple of our just outstanding metal detectorists that are way better than Sue and I are. They've been doing it 30, 40 years, Jeff Lubert, John Olson. And then on the right, we're out at Julesburg with some of the CSU people and some of our HART team members. Next slide, please. We want to talk about a couple of specific projects to give you a better feel for what it is we do. One was at Loretto Heights. Loretto Heights is in southwest Denver. I think some of you who are longtime Denver people will know what I'm talking about here. Southwest Denver, it sits up on a hill over on Federal and Hampton approximately. Large sandstone buildings, really magnificent buildings. Real estate developers have purchased that property and they're developing it for affordable housing. They wanted to retain some of the past long history of that property. And so they engaged us to locate items for them. They're going to put them in a case in the administration building to exhibit what's occurred there in the past. It was a Catholic girls' school for many, many years and went through various incarnations over the years. It operated from 1891 to 2016. Large property, about 70 acres, and it was a 3-year project for us to get through it. Here are some examples of items that we found. These pictures are ones that I've taken, and I admit they're not necessarily the greatest, but hopefully they'll convey the message to you. Lots of old coins, lots of other old items. These keys, by the way, Sue wanted me to point this out in the upper left corner there. I'm not sure what they went to when they were functional, but they were found at least 2 feet down in the ground by one of our members. So going back to what I was saying a little earlier, 1 foot is the minimum. Sometimes we can go quite a bit deeper than that. And I would point out that we found lots and lots of dorm room keys over there, bags of dorm room keys that students had lost over the years. A few more pictures of Loretto Heights. I found this silver crucifix up here in the upper left corner, and the chain remarkably was still in really good shape when I found it. So it must be very high quality. The crucifix itself is silver. I want to point out this gold signet ring down here in the lower left corner, very heavy, complete gold. A signet ring, you may or may not know, was used in the distant past to stamp into wax somebody's symbol. And I'm not sure that we are told that this wasn't a priest who had this. It's somebody above a priest, like a bishop or somebody higher up within the Catholic Church who owned that ring. And then over here, you'll see some more examples of things that we found out there. Next slide, please. Another project, and I've already referenced it a couple of times. It's working out at the Julesburg town site and battlefield. Julesburg, you may or may not know, is far northeastern Colorado. It's about 3 full hours from Denver. We worked with Ray Sumner out there and some of his CSU students. Jason Lavelle, whose name came up a little earlier, was also involved in this, but certainly not to the extent that Ray was. The town itself began in 1859. With our metal detecting, we were able to locate the location of some of the buildings through the nails that were still able to be found through our metal detecting. There was out there at Julesburg a stage stop and a Pony Express station, so it was pretty busy at one time in the mid 1800s. There was also a general store that was there. And then along with that, we also did detecting that ties into the Battle of Julesburg that occurred in January of 1865. This occurred, and I was speaking to John a little bit earlier about this. This occurred right after the Sand Creek Massacre, which is so notorious in Colorado history. This Julesburg project, again, covered a huge area, and we worked on it during pretty large portions of 2 summers in 2019 and 2021. And here at the bottom of the screen are examples of the types of things we found. We found so many different types of bullets and shell casings out there. It was amazing. That's a Army uniform button there. And then Sue is holding part of an ox shoe that she detected out there. Next slide, please. Just wanted to mention some other HART projects. These were just one-day projects. The other 2 I mentioned to you took quite a bit of time to get through, but these were one-day projects. Hughes Stadium up in Fort Collins, CSU's football field. Before it was demolished in 2018, we went out there for 1 day. We found an old rodeo medallion out there, which was kind of unusual, like a football field. Another one-day project was at the Colorado State Penitentiary in Canyon City at the site of the former women's prison there. Sue found what they, in the crime business, they call it a shiv, or what's the other term? A shank. A shiv or a shank, they call it. Yeah, something like that. You seem to know something about it.
I plead the fifth.
It's actually a kind of crude homemade knife device, and the one she found was, I don't know, at least a foot long. We found some interesting prison art out there too that was metal. We did Park Hill Golf Course a couple of years ago, and that was just a one-day project. So I'm working my way toward the end here. Getting back to what I was saying in the beginning, Sue and I are putting this out here, and we're encouraging you to consider using detectorists if your project includes searching for metal items. The historical artifact recovery team is one possibility for you. If it's just a small project, Sue or I might be able to help you with it. But I want to emphasize, we don't have a market on metal detecting. I mean, there are lots of people out there who are competent. The idea we're conveying is that you might want to use metal detecting as a discipline to help you with your archaeological projects. The only thing I would say is make sure that whoever you use is trusted. You know they're going to turn over the artifacts to you if they find them, and you want somebody who's knowledgeable and experienced, so you know that they're not going to pass over items that you like to have for your project. This shows the links that we'll go to. We'll go out there in the field with the cattle to chase down some metal artifacts. That's Mary Sable, one of our great detectors. And then finally, if you happen to want to get in touch with us, you could reach out to Sue or me, and you can talk to us afterwards. I'd rather not put our personal information out there for the public, and I think you can appreciate that. Or Amy certainly knows how to get in touch with us at any time. Thanks for listening. If you've got questions, Sue and I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
We're just gonna
Thank you.
Yes, if anybody in the audience at home would like to ask a question, you can put one in the chat. We'll be monitoring it. Okay. I have a question. Just wanted to find out,
Stand real close to John, Stacy.
What I wanted to find out was, when you come onto a project, what kind of prep do you have to do in terms of, setting out a grid, running your path on that grid? What sort of time does it take to carry out such a project?
It depends on the size, Stacy. And it depends on what the institution wants from us. Like at Loretto Heights, it would be a good example. They didn't really have any parameters for us. They knew there was a rich history on that property, and they knew that they didn't know how to get into that history. They knew they had to have somebody with metal detecting skills. So they pretty much turned it over to us, and we took it from there. When we worked with Amy and her cohorts over in France on the B-17 bomber, we were very careful in working out each day. And we were with them for about 3 weeks. We'd set out every day, sort of a grid pattern with, at least end lines and side markers denoting exactly where we were going to be that day. But it didn't take too awfully long. At Loretto Heights, it didn't take long at all. When we were working with Ray Sumner out there in Julesburg, he would know ahead of time what area in general he wanted us to cover. So we didn't necessarily have grid lines or anything, but we would say, from that tree over to that fence post, back to the road, something like that.
And that was such a big area.
Yeah,
But
that's what I
then
mean.
next year, we went over to the other side of the road and you sort of pinpointed us into certain directions on the other side. So it took a long, covered a lot of territory. And we did have probably 10 people at a time out there,
Mhm.
10 or 12, yeah.
Mhm. And then when we find something, and this was true in France, it's true on these other projects, we will mark it with a flag. And then somebody will come along later with GPS and get the item and mark the item, number the item. And on GPS, we'll be able to show exactly where it was found. We don't do that though. As detectives, we just find the item.
Yeah, but I could see how that would help, sort of along the lines of doing a survey, just walking the grounds, looking for possibly the boundaries of the site. It's very much the same thing. You can do that with a metal detector, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah, my question kind of follows that line, in terms of defining boundaries of a site, for kind of practical purposes. So is there a way that with metal detecting that you could go into, a historic site where there's clearly a house and some outbuildings and whatnot, set up a grid and start to work out from where all that known stuff is, kind of, okay, we know we're going to find a lot of stuff in there, but we want to define where the boundaries are. Can you do it without having to actually dig the artifacts up? So can you do it by ear where you just sort of walk out there? Okay, right. You just set pin flags and then you can see that distribution of where it starts to fade out.
Craig, you could do that.
Yeah. I think that's.
We could run along the ground, and if we're getting a lot of hits, we call them hits.
Right.
The sound that it makes in your headphones, and we could pretty easily determine, like, if we had a high concentration of hits like in this room, and then we go out further and we lose them, or go in a different direction and we lose them, we can see that here's where we want to spend our time. And maybe beyond what we do as detectives, we could help indicate to you as an archaeologist where it seems that most of the metal is located.
Especially if you're going to put a test unit in, right? Like,
Exactly.
to be able to try to hit that point.
And I hate to keep drumming on the project in France, but that's exactly what we did over in France with Amy and the other archaeologists. They wanted to know, where can we best spend our time digging a unit. I think that's the term.
And then a second question along those lines is what, what does the ground visibility or clearance clearance have to look like, vegetation wise?
The less vegetation, the better.
Okay.
If the weeds get up to knee high,
Yeah.
and it depends on the kind of weeds too, or if it's stubble in a farmer's field. The less of that, the better we can do. Because, we can't keep hacking into, thick weeds or stubble that hasn't been plowed up yet. So the clearer the ground, the better job we can do. So, okay.
I was doing exactly what you were doing. I was gonna have to talk about the perimeters of what Ray had you guys do in France. And you already mentioned that he came along behind and GPS pointed at every single hit they got. So we got a really intense cloud and we wanted that because it was a farmer's field that this thing went down in. So we knew that there was spread. So it's been plowed for how many 50 decades, not decades, 50 decades, but how many decades now? And just what that looked like, and that was really cool. On top of that, then when we were digging with this specific project, they knew we were looking for human remains. But along with the plane parts, we would have the detectors come into our units and detect the bottom of our units. So we would go down however many centimeters or meters, and then they would hop into our unit when we were clear on a certain level. And they would call us sterile or not, because we knew since there was a plane associated with this, if they weren't getting any hits a meter into the ground, we weren't going to keep going for both, because we knew that there wasn't that down there. So just really cool use of their expertise and their knowledge.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Working on the women's prison, old mines. How did you determine the area that you surveyed, that you work on?
Good question. It's pretty well defined there with walls. We were detecting the former women's prison. So these massive walls, I don't know, have you been to the penitentiary? Okay, those walls have not changed. So that's one boundary. There's a street that comprised another boundary. There's the end of the property, that was never prison property on another one of on the third of the four sides. And then there's another fence that has been there for years, and road, a less traveled road on the other side. So we had the four boundaries laid out for us. And the prison itself is still there. It is now the Penitentiary Museum, and our artifacts were placed in the museum there. But fortunately with that one, everything was very well laid out for us. So we hunted very carefully within the boundaries, those four sides.
Did it reveal to you that the women's prison was filled with trash area?
Was it built over a trashy area? I do not know. I don't recall that we came up with much rubbish or anything like that. It could be deep. The penitentiary property is big, so there may be dumps all around. I don't know. We didn't confront that problem.
What kinds of things did you find at the penitentiary?
I referenced some prison art, a rectangular piece, maybe 3 inches by 2 inches, that clearly had specific gang graffiti on it. It wouldn't take long for you to identify what gang we're talking about. We found quite a few old coins, which was surprising. We found some rings.
I think Tony didn't found a bullet or a shell.
There were a couple of bullets that we found. not like out at Julesburg, but there were some. Thanks, Sue, for pointing that out. Yeah, I'm not really recalling anything else with that.
Normal, along those lines, I have a question from Todd McMahon. And he asked, what happened to the artifacts that you recovered at some of the projects like Laredo Heights? And are you aware that of the need to work with a permanent archaeologist on non-federal public land, since the artifacts on non-federal public lands belong to the state?
Well, we haven't worked on any public land.
So
all that we have done up to this point has been private property. Yeah. And we do always know where the artifacts go. It's one of the things, we don't require much, but we do want to know where they're going. The Julesburg artifacts went to CSU first, and they were to be disseminated to museums in Sedgwick and Logan counties and to schools out there too. And I think CSU was going to keep a bunch of them in their repository. The ones that we found in France all got turned over to the agency of the Department of Defense that we were working for. At Laredo Heights, they all went to the real estate developers. Yeah.
Kind of along the same lines, if you don't mind, and ask purely out of ignorance because I think it's really cool, but I also know nothing about it. So it seems like HART and Sue and Norm are very on the same page and responsible about what they're doing. In personal experience, stories that I've heard from other people, that's not always the case. So like, I guess what's your advice for people who are interested in it as like a hobby to kind of keep these tensions low between metal detectorists and archaeologists? I have one guy who refers to them as Satan's tool.
Yeah.
How do we not do that? Because this sounds like an excellent way for me to have to do fewer shovel tests. So
well, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. This is a long-held impression of metal detectorists, and it's pretty well set out in that quote that I had from American Battlefield Trust, that metal detectorists traditionally, I think, by professionals like you as archaeologists, have thought of them as pirates and plunderers, just out for whatever they can get for themselves. That's what we're trying to overcome here. I don't want to be thought of like that.
like I said, Sue and Norm seem very much.
No, we are,
Yeah.
and we certainly frown upon the plunderers who are out there. We're not going to be able to get rid of them. I know they are there. We subscribe to American Digger magazine, which is really the good one, the best one for metal detectorists. And it's not uncommon for somebody to write in and tell a responsible metal detectorist to write in and tell about the problems they're having with those who aren't so responsible. I remember one article I read, there was a project a couple of people were working on, and it was too big to finish in one day. They go back the next time, it's been totally destroyed. Yeah. So there's no chance for historical purposes for preserving what was there. And it gives metal detectorists a bad name. I don't know how to get around it other than by some people really having a conscience about it and trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I think what you guys are doing right now with the education around it too is fantastic.
Thanks.
That's great.
Thanks.
From
But
one plunderer to another.
From one to another.
Though I'd say that the name treasure hunters does give that impression.
With Eureka, when we first started, I don't think the HART area was used as much. I mean, I think when we got there, it was sort of like someone had tried to do something with it, but it didn't take. But as we started in, and we started getting calls like from Ray, and these people at Loretta Heights, it was like we felt good because we wanted this historical part to outweigh the other part.
You want to do
Just
reputable work.
wanted to do- Yes.
Stacy, you make a good point
Focus on-
about the name of our club, though.
yes.
Treasure Hunters doesn't necessarily create the greatest impression. I know what you mean. It goes back to 1973, and I don't know if there's any changing it now. But the reason, and I've inquired about this, why do we call ourselves Treasure Hunters? And why don't we just call ourselves Eureka Metal Detecting Club? And the reason is we're not just metal detecting. There are bottle hunters, that's a pretty big, well, yeah, you're a room full of archaeologists. I'm not telling you anything. But bottle hunting, gold prospecting is part of it too. I don't know, what am I forgetting here? But the reason it was named that is they want to make it more encompassed than just metal
Larger.
detecting.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, if you can try and educate those that might not have loftier ideas, that would be good. I was just wondering if, I'm just thinking about metal detecting in England. There is a, federal law in the UK that whatever you find, you have to notify the local county coroner. And they will then examine the find, and if they deem it as national treasure, you will get a portion of the find, but it basically belongs to the state, to the government.
you were absolutely right,
And
Stacey.
there are severe fines for not reporting fines. So-
Members of our club will make an annual trek to England.
Mhm.
I don't think they've gone to any other countries that I know of, but they'll go in and they describe exactly what you're describing.
Yeah,
That everything is examined at the end of the day. Some is kept, some is not kept. It's interesting to me that when we talk to these people, when they come back, something that's 2,000 years old might not have any interest to the authorities. And so, you can take that, but some of the items are kept. If they are kept, it's my understanding that there's payment for it,
Yeah.
supposedly a fair
It
payment.
goes to an
Like if a
an
museum.
Yes.
institution will pay
Right,
what they deem as a market
right.
value.
And I
for
think
it.
half of it goes to the landowner and half goes to the person who found the item. Another thing, over in Europe, you have to have a permit, as I understand it, to metal detect. I don't know of any jurisdiction here in the US where you have to have a permit.
Yeah, that's the same thing with what they call mudlarking, which is basically beach combing. You have to have a permit to do it. I would say as a tourist, you can join a tour, mudlarking tour, where they take you up down the Thames when the tide is out. But you cannot go down there by yourself and just pick things. You have to have a permit. And again, these things have to be reviewed by the authorities. And I think probably when you talk about the 2,000-year-old stuff that they're allowed to keep, it's because it's something that may be common.
Right, it is common. That's right. Yeah. It wouldn't be very common in the US though, if it was 2,000.
Modern civilization, yes, I would say so.
Great.
Nor I worked for the Park Service in Tallahassee, Southeast Regional Center, and included in that were a lot of the battlefields from the Civil War that were under the Park Service control. They were on national park land, and the issue that they ran into was as soon as you stepped over the border of the park boundary, it was like Lunar City. They would just come right up to the edge and dig up to the line. And, there's obviously very little that you can do to stop that because most of the time it is private land. But the Park Service kind of had taken the approach that whenever they were going to have a project out there that involved metal detecting, they would go ahead and get the local folks that they probably knew, the day before, 2 days before, right on the other side of the boundary, digging up artifacts. And I think the idea was similar to what you guys are doing here, where it's just, You can't stop them from doing it really, but if you're involved and you see other people around that are kind of trying to take the right approach to it, maybe you can kind of change their thought process on what they're out there doing. And of course, it gives them a, you know, kind of an outlet to actually go out there and find stuff on the battlefield, you know,
Right.
on the Park Service land, and they get to see something that nobody else does.
Good
So,
point.
yeah.
Well, I would tell you, and I think I mentioned this earlier, not everybody in our club belongs to the historical artifact recovery team. They're not interested in it. At the same time, I think that our influence on them is very strong, and they would not be a looter like that. I'm very confident that there's nobody in our club who would, you know, go to such an extent as to loot or, you know, it's almost theft, really, when you think about it. But we really try not to have anything like that happen among our club members.
It's interesting to hear that part of the discussion about what I'm going to call ethical searching and such, because I can remember comments in archaeological meetings 35 years ago about who's a good guy and who's not. And so what makes us better than them?
Like from one plunderer to another.
I mean, to create,
Yeah.
it is something that is not only in metal detecting, it has been in archaeology.
Still is, oh,
Yeah, it's just maybe, I don't hear about it in the way that I did 35 years ago.
Yours is a little newer as far as
True.
using it for archaeology. And we had just-
We've had a while to establish our ethics.
Thanks for pointing that out. Appreciate it.
Yeah, also with the detector, you're talking about knowing from the sounds of different metals. Is it something, is it all audio, or do you have a visual display as well?
Oh, great question, Stacy. There's a controller on every metal detector, and it depends on how sophisticated the machine is. But you'll always get a visual display, which helps indicate A, the depth of the object, and B, what the object is made of. It might be zinc or copper or gold, and you'll get an indicator. It's not perfect by any means. The depth isn't perfect either, but it gives you an indication. And in addition, through your headphones, that's why you really need headphones. I see people out there in the park who don't have headphones, and they're beeping like crazy out there. It's very annoying. You need the headphones because that's the audio indicator that you get. And you wouldn't get this the first time you went out metal detecting, but after you've been out a few times, you begin to know what the sounds are and what they indicate. Have I got a penny here? Have I got a quarter here? Have I got a silver ring? So you get both of those types of feedback, which are very helpful to you. You know, and after a while, you know, okay, if we go to a park, what do you think we're going to find the most of? Pull tabs and bottle caps. Okay, and you hear so much of those that after a while, you know, I'm not messing around with that. I've wasted my time. Pennies, also, you get to know those really well. It's not worth your time. But it does take some experience.
Differences when you talk about the penny, do you find differences in, let's say, pennies or nickels where the composition
Yes, ma'am.
changes over time?
Yes, you do.
You can get differences in pennies depending on
The
how
year,
old your penny
yeah.
is
Right,
and how new you
right. Okay, I wondered about that.
You can.
Yeah, because when I also too, what was it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, they drained Sloan's Lake and all the detectorists went out there.
I think we had people who went out there. Sue and I did.
Well, Jim went out, remember he got that gun?
Oh, yeah, we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not surprised.
Just one?
That's a good point.
Yeah. How is it when working on the project in France, when you're talking about how with the detectors you can tell what different materials you've got. Is there much difference in when
That's
you're
a,
looking at an airplane?
that is a great question. We paid no attention to any kind of signals we were getting. If we found something, we dug it. And by far and away, the majority, and you'll know this, 90% of what we found are pieces from the airplane when it blew up into, 100,000 pieces. It's aluminum.
So you Constantly get the same sound,
But,
unless.
but we were engaged to dig up, and we felt obligated to dig up or dig up and mark everything that we found. So we're just going along, we weren't paying attention to what it read on our screen, on our machine, or what the different sounds were. If we find a metal item, it's coming.
And they wanted things like serial numbers, model numbers.
Yeah, looking something
Everything,
identifying.
we did come up with 3 good objects that were totally could identify that.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
No, I didn't see. I did have one more question, Norm. What about the technology, the difference in technology between a metal detector and say like a magnetometer or a gradiometer? I'm not sure if you. Yeah. Yeah, they seem like they do a similar thing, but I don't know why they don't seem. Yeah, right. That's always what it seems like it's used for. So I wonder what the difference is, between the physics and how those operate.
I don't know, Craig.
Yeah.
All I know, and I'm not that great, we have people in our club who are really experts. They'll take parts from one machine and put it on another one, have some kind of hybrid thing. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
All I know is ours puts out a magnetic field, and I think what you're talking about, Craig, does the same thing.
Mhm.
Probably what you're talking about just does it on a bigger scale.
It might be. Yeah. I know that it just doesn't seem like they're sufficient for the type of metal detecting that you're doing. Like I know that any project that I've been involved that used them is kind of using them in conjunction with a GPR, and they're kind of more like
You hit them in the back of the fucking head.
like that. That's a magnetic signal, and it can be deeper in the soil. So maybe that's it. It's almost like too sensitive for metal on the surface.
Yeah, very well could be.
Yeah.
Sue has a keen interest in LiDAR.
Mhm.
And she's done a fair amount of reading about that. And that's where you can get an overview picture, if you will, that'll reveal man-made structures. We haven't done it, haven't been around it. My one anecdote, I might just finish with this, is there was a man and his wife from Belgium who joined us over there in France. And he had some device, contraption, as big as half the width of the room here, that he took out across the field, and he claimed he could find bone and pieces of leather. I didn't see it myself. Maybe Amy has a comment about it. All I know for sure is he got near the third detectorist, this Chris Davis, who I mentioned, and Sue, and like blew up their machine. Yeah, they spent the whole afternoon trying to get their machines to work again.
His machine broke your machine.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, I think there's some hocus pocus there. I didn't see that really worked. And Amy's getting a good laugh. Thanks so much. Hey, nice talking with you. Thank you.
Magnets are miracles. That's how they sound when you get this. Thank you.
Okay, are you checking everybody out?
Yeah, no other questions. Just lots of thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate your participation.
Again, if you have any questions regarding the oh, we have to do the business. Sorry, everybody stay. We have to make an announcement about the upcoming elections and our slate of candidates. Yes, so Craig, if you can come up and make that announcement. Thanks for hanging in there.
Okay, so this is the announcement for the 2023 candidates for Denver CAS chapter. I'll be running again as president. That's okay. Thank you. That's better. All right, John, that wasn't very enthusiastic. What the heck? Amy Gillespie will be running for vice president. Yay! All right, thank you, Amy. Stacy has agreed to stay on as secretary if we'll have her, which I think we will. Thank you, Stacy. Treasurer Michelle will continue, has agreed to run again for the treasurer.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you, Michelle. Membership chair. I think Gene Wheaton, I haven't spoken to him directly. No, okay, we don't. All right.
Not membership.
No.
He's doing the
PAC and CAS. I'm sorry. Yeah, the CAS representative and PAC coordinator, Gene Wheaton, is the candidate for that position. The membership chair is, who did I talk to? Melissa Dolan today has agreed to do the membership chair. So we have, yeah, so she accepts that. Let's see, Emily Siebel, thank you very much, is going to be doing the APB for us. Yeah, with Stacy. So, all right, great. Let's see, director, newsletter editor. That's okay. That's the position.
That's a non-elected position.
Right.
Appointed
Directors. The new directors. There's two positions that we need a new director for. Teresa Whedon has agreed to run again for the position that she held as director. And then Joseph Garrett and Michael Kolb will stay on as the director positions that they have. They have one more year left. And then Deb Bollig, who was our membership coordinator, is going to step into the other director position.
Thank you,
If
Deb.
we will have her. Yep. And so that's what we'll vote on in the elections next month. Yeah. Really appreciate everybody who's stepped up into new positions and has stayed in old positions. And we thank those who are departing. Kayla's here. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
I'll miss
Did a
you.
great job. Yeah.
And the election will be November 14th.
November 14th at the next general meeting.
And an introduction will be December members night, December 12th.
Have we picked a location for the?